My parents put me in foster care at 5 and never called. Now they're filing lawsuits claiming rights to the $80 million inheritance my adoptive family left me. Hey family, your support keeps these stories alive. Subscribe, say hi in the comments, and tell us your city or country. Let's get into today's story. I was sitting in my home office when the certified letter arrived. My hands trembled as I read the words, "Legal Notice," stamped across the front. Inside, my biological parents, people I hadn't seen in 28 years, were suing me for $50 million of the inheritance my adoptive parents left me. $50 million. From people who dropped me at a foster home when I was 5 and never looked back. The memory hit me like a freight train. I remember that day so clearly. My mother, my biological mother, kneeling down in that gray hallway that smelled like pine cleaner and old carpet. "Mommy will be right back, Clara," she'd said, her eyes not quite meeting mine. "You be a good girl and wait here." I'd clutched my stuffed rabbit, the one with the missing eye, and nodded. I waited. And waited. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. He never came back. Now, according to this lawsuit, they wanted to claim familial rights to money I'd inherited from the only real parents I'd ever known. The audacity made my stomach turn. I called my lawyer immediately. "Darnell," I said, my voice shaking with anger I didn't know I was holding, "you need to see this." "Send it over," he replied calmly. Minutes later he called back. "Clara, this is unprecedented. They abandoned you. How did they even know about the inheritance?" That's what I wanted to know. The Johnsons had kept their wealth private. When they passed last year, Mom from cancer, Dad from a heart attack 6 months later, I'd been devastated. They'd saved me, loved me, given me everything. Now strangers were trying to take it. Before the Johnsons, my life was a different story entirely. After my biological parents abandoned me, I spent 3 years bouncing through foster homes. The first family, the Hendersons, were nice enough but overwhelmed with 7 other kids. I slept on a couch in the living room, my belongings stuffed in a plastic grocery bag under the coffee table. Mrs. Henderson tried her best, but I was just another mouth to feed, another body taking up space. The second home was worse. Mr. Patterson had a temper that exploded over small things. Spilled milk, too much noise, homework taking too long. His wife would flinch when he raised his voice, and we kids learned to become invisible. I remember hiding in the closet during his rages, covering my ears, praying I wouldn't be noticed. The caseworker eventually removed us all, but the damage was done. I'd learned that adults couldn't be trusted. Then came the Robinsons, who saw foster children as paychecks. They fed us the bare minimum, bought second-hand clothes that barely fit, and spent the stipends on themselves. I remember watching Mrs. Robinson come home with new jewelry while we ate pasta for the 5th night in a row. "You should be grateful," she'd snap when I asked for seconds. "Nobody else wanted you." Those words haunted me. Nobody else wanted me. At 8 years old, I believed it was true. I was damaged, unlovable, unwanted. My biological parents had proven that, hadn't they? They'd chosen their freedom over me. Every night I'd whisper to my rabbit, "What's wrong with me?" The rabbit, of course, had no answers. Then, on a Tuesday morning in October, my caseworker Ms. Oliver said, "Clara, there's a couple who wants to meet you." I'd heard this before and felt nothing. Another interview, another rejection. I was 8, almost 9, too old for most families who wanted babies or toddlers they could mold from scratch. But Eleanor and Edward Johnson were different. They walked into the visitation room, and Eleanor's eyes filled with tears the moment she saw me. Not pity tears, something else. Recognition, maybe. She sat down across from me while Edward stood back, giving me space. "Hi, Clara," she said softly. "I hear you like to draw?" I shrugged. I'd been learning to show nothing, feel nothing. Safer that way. But Eleanor pulled out a sketchbook and colored pencils. Expensive ones, not the dollar store kind. "Would you like to draw something with me?" We sat in silence for 20 minutes, just drawing. She didn't ask invasive questions or make promises. She just existed beside me. When the visit ended, she touched my shoulder gently. "I'd like to see you again. Would that be okay?" Over the next 6 months, they visited every week. They brought art supplies, books, took me to museums and parks. Edward taught me to play chess, explaining each move with infinite patience. Eleanor listened when I finally started talking about the Pattersons, the Robinsons, the ache of being abandoned. She never once said, "It'll be okay." Instead she said, "That was wrong. What happened to you was wrong and you deserved better." The day they asked to adopt me, I cried for the first time in 3 years. The adoption was finalized 3 months before my 9th birthday. The Johnsons, my parents now, threw me a party like I'd never imagined. Friends from my new school, a cake with my name in perfect cursive, presents wrapped in shiny paper. When I blew out the candles, Eleanor leaned in and whispered, "Welcome home, sweetheart. Forever." Forever. That word meant something now. They enrolled me in therapy with Dr. Patricia Williams, a Black woman psychologist who specialized in childhood trauma. "Clara," Dr. Williams said in our first session, "you've survived things no child should experience. That doesn't make you broken. It makes you strong. And now we're going to help you feel safe again." It took years. Years of nightmares, of testing boundaries, of waiting for my new parents to abandon me too. But they never did. When I acted out, and I did, throwing spectacular tantrums, pushing them away, they stayed calm. Edward would sit outside my locked bedroom door and talk through it. "I'm not going anywhere, Clara. I'll be here when you're ready." Eleanor would leave notes in my lunch. "I love you. Nothing you do will change that." Slowly, carefully, I began to believe them. I excelled in school, discovering I had a gift for mathematics and business. Dad, a successful real estate investor, taught me about property management, compound interest, strategic planning. Mom, a former art curator, showed me how to appreciate beauty, how to see the story in everything. By high school I was thriving. College at a prestigious university. Eventually I started my own investment firm. My parents' death hit me like a tsunami. Mom's cancer diagnosis came suddenly, stage 4 already spread. "We've got 6 months, maybe a year," the doctor said. Dad held her hand, his face gray. I moved back home immediately, putting my business on hold to care for her. Those final months were precious and horrible. "Clara," Mom whispered one evening, her voice weak from chemo, "you need to know something. When we found you, we weren't looking to adopt. We couldn't have children and we'd made peace with it. But then I saw your face in that foster home." She paused, gathering strength. "You saved us as much as we saved you. You gave our lives meaning. Don't you ever forget that you are worthy of love. Not because of what you achieve or what you have, but because of who you are." She passed away on a Sunday morning, holding both our hands. Dad was never the same. They'd been married 35 years, together since college. He tried to push through, but his heart, literally, couldn't take it. 6 months later he had a massive heart attack while sleeping. Peaceful, the doctor said. I called it heartbreak. The will reading was devastating in a different way. They'd left me everything. $80 million in assets. Properties, investments, cash, art collections. To our daughter Clara, the will read, who brought light into our darkness. Build something beautiful with this. Make the world better. We'll always be proud of you. I sobbed in the lawyer's office, grateful and gutted. The money felt like ashes compared to their loss. I started a foundation in their names focused on foster care reform and adoption support. Felt right honoring them. After receiving the lawsuit, I hired a private investigator named James Tucker. I need to know everything, I told him. How they found out about the money, what they've been doing for 28 years, why they're coming after me now. James was former FBI, specialized in financial investigations. If anyone could uncover the truth, it was him. 2 weeks later he walked into my office with a thick file. Clara, you're not going to like this, he said, his expression grim. Your biological parents, Terrence and Shanice Walker, they're not struggling. They're living in a 4-bedroom house in the suburbs. Terrence runs a moderately successful construction company. Shanice works as a nursing administrator. Combined income around $200,000 a year. I stared at him. So they're not poor. Then why, there's more, James interrupted. They have 3 other children. Twin boys, aged 24, and a daughter aged 20. All raised in that house, all sent to college. Your brother Justin is a lawyer. That's who filed the lawsuit on their behalf. The room spun. They'd kept their other children. Raised them, loved them, paid for their education. But me? I was disposable. Why did they give me up? I whispered. James flipped through his notes. I interviewed some old neighbors, dug through court records. Best I can tell, they were young, 21 and 22 when they had you. Struggling financially, fighting constantly. When things got tough, they blamed each other. And they blamed you. They blamed a 5-year-old child? People do horrible things when they're overwhelmed, Clara. They told the foster system they needed temporary help. But they never came back. Against my lawyer's advice, I decided to meet them. I needed to look them in the eyes, hear their justification for themselves. We arranged to meet at a neutral location, a conference room in Darnell's law office. I arrived early, my heart hammering against my ribs. When they walked in, I almost didn't recognize them. Terrence Walker was tall, graying at the temples, wearing an expensive suit. Shanice had put on weight but still had the same eyes I remembered, brown, guarded. Behind them came their lawyer's son, Justin, carrying a briefcase. He looked like his father. Like my father, technically. The resemblance made me nauseous. Clara, Shanice said, her voice tentative. You've grown so much. You're beautiful. The audacity of that statement, as if she'd earned the right to comment on my appearance, as if she'd been there for any of my growth, made rage flash through me. Kept my voice level. Let's skip the pleasantries. You abandoned me 28 years ago and never looked back. Now you want $50 million. Explain. Terrence cleared his throat. We understand you're angry, but legally? I cut him off. You think this is about legality? You left a 5-year-old in foster care. Do you have any idea what I went through? Shanice's eyes welled with tears. We were so young, Clara. We couldn't handle it. We were drowning financially, emotionally. We thought we were doing what was best. Best for who? Certainly not for me. We made mistakes, Terrence said. But we're still your parents. Your blood family. The law recognizes abandonment, Darnell interjected coldly. Opened his briefcase, pulling out documents. Ms. Walker, or do you prefer Johnson? Our position is simple. You received an inheritance that rightfully should include consideration for your biological family. $50 million is less than 2/3 of the estate. We're being reasonable. Reasonable. I laughed bitterly. You kept 3 children. Raised them, paid for their education. But you threw me away like garbage. Tell me, Justin, did they mention me growing up? Did you even know I existed? His face flushed. That's irrelevant to the legal case. Answer the question. Silence. Then surprisingly, it was their daughter who spoke. She'd been standing in the corner and I hadn't even noticed her enter. I didn't know about you until last month, she said quietly. When they told us about the lawsuit, they said you'd been adopted by a wealthy family and never wanted contact with us. That's not true, I said, my voice breaking. I waited. For years I waited for them to come back. I thought something was wrong with me, that I was unlovable. Do you understand what that does to a child? Shanice was crying openly now. We were going to come back. We always meant to come back. But time passed and we heard you'd been adopted and we thought you were better off. You thought wrong. I spent 3 years in foster care before the Johnsons adopted me. 3 years being shuffled around, neglected, treated like a burden. And you were here the whole time, living your lives, having more children. Clara, please. Terrence reached for me. I jerked back. Don't touch me. You lost that right 28 years ago. The meeting ended badly, but it opened a door I hadn't expected. That evening their daughter, my half-sister, called me. My name is Kennedy, she said. I know you don't owe me anything, but could we talk? Just us. Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet her for coffee. Kennedy was 20, a junior in college studying social work. We sat across from each other, 2 strangers bound by blood and betrayal. I don't know what to say, she started. My whole life I thought I was the oldest. Learning about you, about what they did. I'm disgusted. She looked genuinely distressed. Tustin and Patrick, our brothers, they're focused on the money. Dad convinced them you're some kind of con artist who manipulated a wealthy family. But I did research. I found articles about your foundation, your work with foster children. That's not a con. That's someone trying to heal. Why are you telling me this? I asked warily. Because it's wrong. What they're doing is wrong. And I think. She hesitated. I think they've been lying to us our whole lives. About a lot of things. She pulled out her phone showing me photos. This is from their 20th anniversary party. Look at the date. I looked. 25 years ago. 3 years after they abandoned me. They threw a party, I said flatly. With all these people celebrating their love and commitment. While I was sleeping on a stranger's couch, wondering why my mommy didn't love me anymore. Kennedy's eyes filled with tears. I'm so sorry. I know it doesn't fix anything, but I'm so sorry. We talked for hours. She told me about growing up with parents who were loving but secretive, who never discussed their past. The deposition was scheduled for the following week. Darnell prepared me thoroughly. They're going to try to paint you as ungrateful, as someone who owes them biological loyalty. Stay calm, stick to facts, don't let them provoke you. But nothing could have prepared me for the emotional warfare that followed. Led the questioning. Miss Johnson, you claim my clients abandoned you. But isn't it true they placed you in foster care with the intention of reclaiming you once their financial situation improved? No, I said clearly. They told the system they needed temporary help and never returned. That's abandonment, not intention. Isn't it true you've refused all contact with your biological family? I was a child. They were the adults. The responsibility to maintain contact was theirs, not mine. You benefited greatly from being adopted by a wealthy family. Would you have had the same opportunities with my clients? That's when I snapped. Your clients? They're your parents. And yes, I benefited from being adopted by people who actually loved me. People who showed up. People who didn't treat their child like a mistake they could erase. Miss Johnson, no, let me finish. Your parents had 3 more children after me. 3 children they kept, loved, supported. So clearly the issue wasn't financial stress or young parenthood. The issue was me. They didn't want me. And now, because the people who did want me left me money, suddenly I'm worth claiming? That's not family. That's greed. The room went silent. Even Justin seemed momentarily at a loss. Darnell touched my arm gently. Let's take a break, he suggested. But I wasn't done. James Tucker had been busy. In the break he pulled me aside with a new development. Claire, I found something. Your biological parents signed away their parental rights 8 months after placing you in foster care. It's in the court records. They didn't just abandon you informally, they legally terminated their rights so they couldn't be sued for child support. The world tilted. They terminated their rights? Completely. Which means this lawsuit has no legal standing whatsoever. They're not your parents in any legal sense. They gave that up. When we reconvened, Darnell dropped this bomb in the middle of the proceedings. Mr. Walker, I have here court documents from 27 years ago. Documents showing you and your wife voluntarily terminated your parental rights to Clara. Which means legally you have no claim to her inheritance. None. Terrence Sr.'s face went pale. Shanice looked like she might be sick. Scrambled. We weren't aware of. You're a lawyer representing your parents in a familial rights case and you didn't check the basic legal history? Darnell's voice was ice. Either you're incompetent or you knew and proceeded anyway. Which is it? The meeting devolved into chaos. Accusations flew. Terrence Sr. claimed he'd been told by the social worker that terminating rights was just a formality. Shanice sobbed that she'd been pressured, that she'd been young and scared. But the truth was clear in the documents. They'd signed away their rights to avoid responsibility. And now they wanted to claim benefits. This case is over, Darnell declared. We'll be filing a countersuit for emotional distress and legal fees. And if you persist with this lawsuit, we'll pursue sanctions. They persisted. Despite everything, they pushed forward, banking on some loophole, some sympathy from a judge. So we ended up in court 3 months later. The courtroom was packed. This case had attracted media attention. Biological family sues adopted daughter for millions, read the headlines. I sat at the plaintiff's table trying to project calm while my stomach churned. The judge, a stern black woman named Judge Harriet Morrison, reviewed the case with obvious skepticism. "Mr. Walker," she addressed Justin, "your clients voluntarily terminated their parental rights to Ms. Johnson 27 years ago. On what legal basis are you claiming familial rights to her inheritance?" Stumbled through an argument about moral obligation and biological bonds. Judge Morrison was unimpressed. "This court deals in law, not morality. And the law is clear. Your clients are strangers to Ms. Johnson legally." He turned to me. "Ms. Johnson, would you like to make a statement?" I stood, my voice steady despite the tears threatening to fall. "Your Honor, I was 5 years old when these people left me in a foster home and never came back. I waited for them. I cried for them. I blamed myself for years, thinking I was unlovable. The Johnsons gave me a home, love, stability, everything parents should give a child. They earned the right to call me their daughter. These people in front of you, they earned nothing but my contempt." The courtroom was silent. When they learned I'd inherited money, suddenly I was worth acknowledging. "That's not family. That's exploitation." Judge Morrison nodded slowly. "I've seen many cases in my years on the bench, but this one particularly troubles me. Mr. and Mrs. Walker, you made a choice 28 years ago to abandon your responsibilities." Judge Morrison's ruling was swift and brutal. "Case dismissed with prejudice. Furthermore, I'm ordering the plaintiffs to pay all legal fees and court costs incurred by Ms. Johnson. Mr. Walker, I suggest you counsel your clients against any further legal action, or they may face sanctions for frivolous litigation." Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. I made a brief statement. "I hope this case serves as a reminder that children aren't property you can discard and reclaim at convenience. Family is built through love and commitment, not biology and greed." The Walkers left through a side entrance, but Kennedy found me before I left. "Clara, I'm so sorry. For all of it. I've cut ties with them. What they did to you, the lies they told us, I can't be part of that." "You don't have to apologize for them," I told her gently. "You didn't do anything wrong. Can we maybe get coffee sometime? As just two people, not as part of this mess." I considered it. Part of me wanted to say no, to close this chapter completely. But Kennedy was innocent in this, a victim of their lies too. "Maybe," I said. "Someday." 6 months later, I stood at my parents' graves, Eleanor and Edward Johnson, the only parents who mattered. "We won," I whispered, placing flowers on their headstones. "They tried to take what you gave me, but we won." But the victory felt hollow. I'd won money, vindication, justice. But I'd also had to relive my worst traumas, confront the people who'd broken me, admit to the world how unwanted I'd been. I expanded the foundation, pouring more money into foster care reform. Every child I helped felt like healing a piece of my broken heart. But some wounds never fully close. Sometimes I still wake up at night, 5 years old again, waiting for a mother who'll never return. The difference now? I know it wasn't my fault. I was worthy all along. And that's a truth worth more than $80 million. Though I won't lie, keeping the money felt pretty damn good too. If this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share your own experiences in the comments below. Your story matters too.